Welcome, everyone, to the Alaska Sea Life Center. My name is Darren, and today we're going to hear from Dr. Amy Bishop. She's going to tell us a little bit about how she came to this point in her career as a marine researcher. So, sort of following along on our little series of how each of us made it far along our career paths. So, let me go ahead and introduce Amy here. Amy, thanks for joining us today. And I'm going to go ahead and make myself disappear, and I'll let Amy take it away. Thanks a bunch.
All right, thanks, Darren. All right, thanks everybody for joining again. If you've been tuning in over the last couple of weeks, you might have seen me presenting on some of the research that I do here at the Sea Life Center. But today I wanted to take a little bit, like Darren said, and just answer a question that I get asked quite a bit. And the center's scientists actually get asked quite a bit. How did we get these jobs? Marine biology is one of those careers that I think a lot of people are drawn to when they're young, and for whatever reason, pick different career paths along the way. So people who are really excited about the ocean and really want to pursue this as a career path, I wanted to kind of give you a little glimpse into what my path looked like. But as you can see on the screen, quick spoiler alert, there is no right answer to this. What I'm going to talk to you about today is kind of my journey and the steps that I took. And there's going to be some overall themes that hopefully will be helpful for you if you are considering this as a career path. But just know that there really is no right answer to this. And I have friends who ended up in marine research who started off in completely different career paths, different types of research. And so hopefully you find something in here that inspires you if this is something that you're interested in. So just as a quick recap about where I am right now to kind of give you the end of the story, I am primarily a behavioral ecologist, so I study animals' behaviors and how they're adapted to their environment. And so for me, that's why marine biology was really exciting, because you have these creatures that are adapted to live in this really, really unique, sometimes harsh environment. And so the questions that I like to answer are things like, what space is important for animals, and how does that relate to our conservation and management of those animals? How are they interacting with each other in that space? How resilient are they to change? That's one of the big questions that's really interesting me and many researchers right now, as we face all these rapid environmental changes brought on by climate change and human activities. And kind of along the lines of that is, how can humans and animals coexist in these environments? How can we find management solutions that find that balance between protecting and resource use? So these are some of the systems and the species that I've worked with over the years or I'm currently working with. And you see a lot of kind of big marine megafauna there. So I do primarily research top predators in marine ecosystems because they're great sentinel species. They help us know kind of what's going on within that environment. And there's also a lot of interesting links that they have then to understand kind of these ecosystem-wide changes. But let's dial it back now to the beginning of the story. Back in high school, we're all feeling that pressure of, what am I going to do with my life? And at the time, one of the things that if you talk to somebody I went to middle school with, the thing that they would probably tell you was fairly defining about me back in those days was that I loved dolphins. I couldn't get enough of dolphins. I was growing up in Chicago in the Midwest. I had never seen the ocean, but I had seen plenty of documentaries and stories and pictures of dolphins, and something about them just really fascinated me. Their ability to, again, live in the marine environment, but be mammals, so they need to breathe air, their sociality, how they communicated, everything about them fascinated me. So for a long time, I really was thinking that marine biology, that's the career that I definitely want to do, because I want to learn more about this species. But at the same time, I also had a huge interest in a lot of creative endeavors, primarily art and music. And so there also was this kind of idea in my head that maybe I want to go be an animator. Maybe I'd like to work for something like Disney or Pixar. As I went through middle school and high school, I started finding that those science classes were really resonating with me. I really enjoyed learning about new concepts and learning about ecosystems and about animals, and even some of the molecular stuff was interesting to me. So ultimately, I decided that art was going to be a little bit more of a hobby for the time being, and I was going to put most of my effort into understanding science. And that is kind of one of the core things about being a marine biologist. You're a biologist. first and foremost. So it is really important to get that core scientific background if marine biology is something that's interesting to you. Now, I did this in a series of schooling opportunities, I guess for lack of a better word. My education went across many states, countries, and different ecosystems. And the courses that I took, though I had that passion for kind of marine biology as itself, I really tried to take a step back in the early years, off some advice from a high school teacher, actually, who, knowing my interest in marine biology, cautioned me not to get too specific too quickly, to keep my interests broad, because you never know where your life may take you. You may not even know what opportunities are available or what information might interest you if you narrow your field too early. So that's one of those other broad tips that I would say. If you have the opportunity to remain broad and kind of keep that overarching perspective, it really can help you even on your path if you're pretty sure you want to end up in marine biology. So for my undergrad, I went to Northern Michigan University and studied zoology, so a more broad approach at looking at kind of animals and how they relate to their ecosystems. And then from that, I started realizing that there were a lot more of my interests that weren't just in core biology, but in conservation and management. I really wanted to know how we can answer some of those questions I started with about these interactions between animals and their environment, how we can maybe move forward to having adaptive management strategies. And so that led me to doing a master's degree through Duke University, and that was a coastal environmental management program. And so that program actually was a huge step to the left for me. And I ended up taking courses in politics, economics, management, all these things that really I never thought as a marine biologist would be really important for me to understand. But that overarching kind of well-rounded opportunity, in addition to taking courses with leading experts in marine ecology and marine mammals, really gave me a better idea of that picture for conservation and management and how maybe all of these components of the ecosystem, including the human components, all fit together. Then an opportunity more or less fell in my lap that I saw there was a PhD research position being advertised at Durham University in the UK. And not thinking much about it, didn't think I was entirely competitive because I just finished my master's. I applied and lo and behold, was accepted into the program. So I picked up my life and moved across the pond and stayed there for about 4 years studying the behavioral ecology of gray seals. And again, this was kind of a step back into more of that pure marine biology type questions. I was interested in how male breeding systems work and what kind of behaviors they interact with each other within their environment. But there were still some of those bigger conservation management questions in terms of we saw rapidly changing environmental conditions, and the site that we were working at was both exposed to tourism. People could go and watch the seals, and there was also military activities in the area. So understanding how those two activities were impacting the animals was a big part of my studies. And then following that, I came back to the US and to Alaska and did a postdoctoral position at the University of Alaska in Anchorage, working with Alaska Native subsistence hunters to find ways that we can collect biological samples from harbor seals to better understand what was going on in the marine environment. So just in that kind of snapshot of the educational opportunities I have, you can see that there was a pretty broad and changing focus of my interests. So another good point and tip, if you want to be a marine biologist, a lot of my focus was on kind of those upper trophic levels initially, but along the way, it's okay to change your mind and to find new avenues that are interesting and new opportunities. And it's worth noting that even along the way, not all of my experiences were with those big charismatic animals. I spent a semester studying in a wetland center where I was doing a lot with soil and plants and restoring creek beds. So really all of those opportunities along the way are part of your journey, and to really embrace the opportunities that you have. Another big kind of takeaway that links back to that, duality that I had when I was in high school is I found that when you're trying to be a scientist, particularly a marine scientist, because you are working with this environment that's not just unique for the animals, but it is challenging to work in, having that creativity as part of your kind of approach to problem solving is hugely important. So don't think of it as I have to pick the right brain or the left brain part of my interests. Really embrace and find that at its core, creativity is learning to observe understanding those components and then creatively putting them back together in new forms. You could apply that to music, you could apply it to poetry, or you could apply it to solving or generating new ideas of how to approach scientific questions. And this is something that I've been pretty passionate about and try to find other organizations throughout my time that also embrace this. One of them that I wanted to highlight here, if you haven't heard of the program called Inspiring Girls Expeditions, it's a great program that takes 16 and 17-year-old girls from around the globe and takes them out into the backcountry for 9 to 14 days and gives them an opportunity to conduct science, explore wilderness, and also use those observational and creative skills. So a big core part of this program is encouraging the girls to use art as a way to both observe their natural environment, to come up with hypotheses, to find those critical analysis skills that are so important for science, but can also manifest in that creative side of their world. So if you're in high school right now watching this and you're thinking that this might be something you want to do, I encourage you to check out Inspiring Girls Expeditions because it is a life-changing experience. And I'm very happy and proud to be part of that organization. Kind of alluded to this before, but I think a lot of people that get into marine biology do get very hyper-focused on particularly a species. I certainly did early on with my interest in dolphins. But don't let that focus deter you from taking opportunities to learn new skills, new ideas, to be exposed to new ways of thinking about things and new systems that maybe you wouldn't have thought were that interesting to you. So again, for example, even when I was here for the first time in Seward, I actually came through the internship program that the Alaska Sea Life Center offers while I was an undergrad. And I was studying harbor seals in the glacier fjords, but I volunteered with opportunities that I could in town. So this was me at the fish cleaning station collecting halibut stomachs for a broader study. It was dirty, it was gross, a little bit on the smelly side. If you don't like the smell of fish, I don't terribly mind it. It definitely didn't have anything to do with where I thought I saw my career going, but it was something that really exposed me to a lot of different opportunities. It was thinking about our ecosystems, not just from the top charismatic animals that you see at the surface, but what else is going on beneath the ocean? How are they all interconnected? What are these fish eating that are important to other fish? It also gives you skills and ways to observe and learn from the broader scientific network. So a lot of the skills that you'll do when you're early on in your career is, professional counter and professional bag holder. You might be collecting samples for other graduate students or for other researchers. Don't think of that as kind of busy work, but it's really an opportunity for you to observe the process, to ask questions. There's really no such thing as kind of too small of a role in a research project. And that really brings me to the next point, which is teamwork. Everything about science is teamwork. I remember on the first day of my PhD orientation, the dean of the college, said, gear up for the next 4 years of your life. It's going to be the most lonely you'll ever be. And I never really felt that during my PhD because so much of my research relied on my lab being a community and my department being a community and us working together in the field or in the lab. And those kind of skills you can develop not just with scientific opportunities. So again, I didn't see the ocean until I was 20, but I was still developing and honing some of these skills through other opportunities. So I was very active with the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life in undergrad and working on that development team, working with some of the teams themselves that were walking and participating in the fundraiser, working with my planning committee, working with the broader university and the local community. All of those different abilities of communicating and being patient and listening, those are skills that you can pick up in a lot of different ways that aren't just for science, but then apply it to science. And so that's something that if you are looking for that kind of foot in the door in your first scientific opportunity, and you've had these other opportunities in the past, to really make sure that you highlight that when you're applying for these positions, that you have some of those core skills, even if it hasn't been in a proper research environment yet. And lastly, the big thing is that nobody is where they are at their point of their career without having people that helped them along the way. I can't speak strongly enough for how much I value all of the mentors that I've had, going all the way back to that, high school teacher who encouraged me to stay broad, my internship mentors, my educational mentors, and particularly a lot of just my, fellow classmates and fellow researchers along the way. Your mentors don't have to just be kind of the big wigs and the senior scientists, but it could be the people that you're on the journey with. They're providing you guidance and they're providing you information that's helping you become who you want to be as part of this career path. And so I just want to make sure that personally, I say a big thank you to everybody I've worked with, but to encourage you to surround yourself with people that are passionate about helping you find your path. Not necessarily telling you what your path has to be, but helping you really find that path, find your center, and hopefully you find yourself where you want to be. For me, I have found myself where I want to be. I'm very lucky. A lot of it was hard work. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of moving. I have, like I said, lived in a lot of different states and countries, and so getting home and seeing my family is rare, but that's not the story for everyone. And that first day that I did see the ocean and we set off in a boat to go look for dolphins in the Scottish coastline, I sat there and I thought I would be pretty darn happy if I could do this for a job. And so I consider myself pretty lucky that I am here and I'm able to continue answering the questions that are interesting to me. I can use the creative part of my brain and what gets me excited as part of my job, and that I can help mentor the next generation through our internship program and through graduate students. So that's pretty much my career journey in a nutshell. I did want to say that I'm very happy to talk to anyone. If you have any specific questions about undergraduate or grad school or just the career path in general, you can find my contact information on the Sea Life Center's website, or you can contact me through the blog or through the comments here. Thanks for listening. I think Darren's going to give you a little send off.
All right, thanks, Amy. That was super inspirational for our, especially the secondary school audience. I think folks who are really getting pretty close to starting to make some real decisions about what kind of career they would like to pursue, and that's the advice of getting too specific too quickly is exactly what helped me in my career path. So I wholeheartedly support that. Whoever told you that, probably the same person that told me. But again, it just allows you to open up and find all those other opportunities. I would definitely encourage everyone to check out our 60 North Science blog. The link to that blog is right there in the description of this video. And if you go to the Alaska Sea Life Center website, you'll find it via that as well, just under the Science tab. But Amy curates that blog, and it's got some fantastic information. And what everybody really loves, just loads of amazing pictures. Knows how to pull all that stuff together and does a great job communicating. So thanks again, Amy, for everything that you've